Hydra's in the center right there. Another Wintermine triggers going into the center as well. Ryung playing with a very small army here. He will be able to push this back. Yeah, now he's going to stim right into the center of those Hydralisks, and he is going to kill most of the problem. There's a lot of Marauders in that composition, which is actually kind of rubbish against what he's fighting, but he will eventually be able to kill it. So Ryung is able to stabilize here, but to what end? His opponent is now building Infestors. He is about to finish 2-2, and he is looking for a transition. He's bringing Burrow into play as well, which is nice. He'll be able to do Infest the Terror and Harass into this area as well. Ryung's going to push out, and the creep spread behind this has been great as well, so we could see a big late-game scenario coming in from both players. The +3 armor's now started, +2 weapons is about to finish, but upgrades-wise, things are pretty even for both these guys. 5th base being taken, Yu-Gi-Oh! Getting nice and greedy. Ryung now actually has the ability to drop and start to push these Widowmines forward here, but if anything, we've seen from Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that Widowmines just don't work very well against him. He has great control against Widowmines. There's a stim going in. Hydra's moving in. Great split against that fungal growth there. It does hit a couple of Medivacs, but not really a big deal. Queen dies as well there. Ryung actually doesn't have a big army, but he is moving in additional units here. Redeploying those Widowmines as best he can. Needs to avoid getting all of his Medivacs fungled. Fungal hits is not really all that effective. Reinforcements now coming in for the Terran player. Will there be enough? Widowmine burrows, and it actually triggers and hits the Hydras in a pretty big way here. Ryung continues to push forward. He doesn't quite have the units, though. The Hydras are able to throw that back. If he keeps streaming in reinforcements, then I'd say this third base is under a lot of pressure. Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't actually have any Infestor energy left. There's a lot more Hydras coming up, but there's 39 Marines, and they will engage very well against this. Let's see if Yu-Gi-Oh! Can actually hold up against it. In comes that Widowmine once again. Actually ends up triggering on the Queen rather than anything else. Ryung continues the pressure here. This might be a position where Ryung could actually drop into the main base and do big damage. Third base has now been taken out. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is struggling against this now. Since he didn't kill the third base, which I'm pretty sure that timing was designed to do, Ryung's now in a good position economically and is now able to snipe that base. In comes the drop, and the Medivac actually gets killed. That was a mistake there by Ryung. It was sniped off by the Queen. Bad move there by Ryung, and this is going to get pushed back by the looks of it. The Fungal hits a few units as well. He's going to take some Medivacs for free. Really nice play there by Yu-Gi-Oh! Great hold, and since the drop failed completely, while he did kill that base, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still in a great spot. Ryung didn't engage as well as he could have there. He's going to swing around now and try to continue to push the creep back. Now, what we see on Newkirk more often than not is Terran versus Zerg that actually cuts the map in half and ends up being a really, really lengthy game. It actually goes super endgame. It can be quite entertaining, but it can also drag on forever. Now, what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not doing is making the mistake that Hyun often does, which is to stay on Roach Hydra for too long. He is adding in endgame units. He's getting +3/+3. Adding Vipers into this composition might be very effective in combination with the Infestors. We're not seeing any big endgame units coming out yet. I don't think there's a Spire, so we're not going to be seeing any Vipers yet. There is, of course, no Ultralisk Cavern, so he's going to end up relying on Roach Hydralisk, which doesn't work for that long. Ryung actually needs to focus here. He is missing obvious potential to do damage. He pushes the mineral line back, but it doesn't actually do any more than it could have. He could have killed Static Defense here. He could have gone after the drone line, but he didn't. It's like he wasn't really focusing on the drop. He just relied on it sort of doing something. There's only one Marine actually doing anything. So this is not the kind of mistakes that, in my opinion, that you could really make against Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is playing pretty much a perfect game, and as a direct result, you just can't do that. Ling's now going to make a run by onto the 4th base, which is great because it's going to pull Ryung's army all the way back here. The Planetary Fortress is not done, and these units will kill that Planetary before it goes up. It's going to be a lot of SCV damage potentially done here as well. But even if it doesn't kill a Planetary or any workers, it pulls Ryung's army back, which means that Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually gets into position and starts to spread his creep again. So that works out pretty well for him. Tech-wise, going for that +3/+3. He is already up against +3/+3. 3 armor is already done. There's a slight lead here. In fact, there's a nice timing that Ryung could hit, I feel, where he's going to be maxed out and he's going to have 3/3 and his opponent won't. So this could be really, really damaging. Another drop comes in here by Ryung, who is not focusing on anything, really. He's shooting at the Extractor, which is not doing anything. He has focused more on this engagement. He actually got flanked there quite nicely. That really cuts off the reinforcements. Fungal comes in and hits the Widow Mines. Nice play. Really lovely play there by Yu-Gi-Oh! The Widow Mines actually used as a rear guard. Here's the thing, though. Ryung can't get out of this right now. He has cut himself into a corner. If his opponent manages to successfully flank him and stop him, then it's going to be horrible. But I think with an army of that size, with the current +3/+3 advantage, which maintains for another 20 or so seconds, Ryung is okay. But if he gets greedy and tries to take down another base, then maybe this Roach Hydra army kills it, especially with good fungal growths. We'll see. Yu-Gi-Oh now moving in defensive position. He is getting greedy. He's going for it right now. The fungal hits, and it's a good one. Second fungal follows that one up. That was really nice there for Yu-Gi-Oh. Absolutely fantastic. Catches that army out and cuts the army supply in half really nicely. And a big Roach attack comes towards the third base. This will be deflected quite easily. There are enough units to actually kill that, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Admittedly, these upgrades are proving to be difficult with a Marine Heavy Force. Roaches don't die all that quickly. He has another attack, and that's actually going to snipe the hatchery as well. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is now down to 1.5 functional mining bases. Planetary now up for Ryung is really, really good, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the larger army. So what Ryung now needs to do is to pull back and defend against the big push that's coming. If he successfully defends that, then he is in a great economic spot, and he should be able to power through this game. Ryung going for a little bit of a drop. Nothing too large. I think that, you know, a 3-3 drop against this kind of static defense, which is now non-existent, is absolutely effective. And it might pull Yu-Gi-Oh! Apart a little bit. Yu-Gi-Oh!'s creep spread has been pushed back past this particular area here, which is that Zelnaga Watchtower. It's not halfway across the map. So this drop should work, and there's actually no overload coverage there as well. So it's not going to be spotted coming in. Still, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is relying on Hydralisks. He is not adding in Vipers, and we're not seeing Ultra or Broodlord transition. It's kind of wonky to do that because you've got 3-3 upgrades. We're not going to see Ultralisks. I don't see any scenario where you see Ultralisks in this battle. Oh, wow, this entire time, Muscular Augments haven't actually been done. That's weird. He must have cancelled it, because I know he was researching it. So these Hydras are actually super slow right now, which means that the engagement's going to be very, very awkward for them. We're going to see some Widow Mines moving into play. The Infestors are kind of trapped in the center here. Fungal growth comes down on the right flank and on the left as well. Great fungals here from Yu-Gi-Oh! In the meantime, the drop comes in and is going to work on this hatchery here. There is enough army, I feel, to push this back. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in a tough spot. Axiom is not, however, controlling this. He's not controlling it. He was focused on this drop. He kills that base, which means that Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually has only half a functional mining base right now. This one just finished, but this push could come in as well. Yu-Gi-Oh! Must beat this army convincingly and then do some damage to his opponent. The problem is on Newkirk that the army gets, the actual map gets split in half, and when you've got a slow army like this, which right now, you know, you don't have Hydra speed for, you end up in a tough spot. You can't really harass. Ling run bys don't work on planetary fortresses, as you're well aware. So, great fungals here. Really good fungals. Are there enough fungals to keep this actually held in position, though? There's a lot of medevacs to try and keep this alive. Ryung tries to move around the side here. This army is getting battered on both sides here, but I think he's got enough to push through. Ryung smashes that. Turns out, no. He decides it's not a good idea. I think he could have beaten that, but I think he would have lost too many units. The problem with his composition is that a lot of the Marines died, and Marauders are just rubbish against Hydras. So he has to push back again, and he has to reinforce. He is, however, building 9 Marines and 4 Marauders at a time, and also adding in more Widow Mines to make this really awkward. The Widow Mines haven't really done much other than provide a... They're providing very much a rear guard, yeah? They're not actually killing anything, but they are forcing the Zerg player to be more cautious. The Zerg player can't charge in because he risks running into Widow Mines. It's also a case of fungals are being used on the Widow Mines as well, rather than the main army. Nice drop comes in right here. Ryung actually needs to control it, though, and he will force a cancel, and then he should be able to get out of here. Oh, no cancel. So, once again, not good for Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in a really tough spot now. He's had a lot of bases sniped off, and Ryung is looking really strong. So I think a push towards this base probably kills it, unless, again, we see miraculous fungals from Yu-Gi-Oh! Great stim coming in, kills off 1 Infestor already. These fungals, this time around, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is prepared for that, and the fungals actually whiff and don't really hit a lot of the army. There's a huge amount of medevacs here, is on 15. Fungal lands again. Yu-Gi-Oh! Trying to hold on here. Again, this Marauder-heavy composition just doesn't work that well against Hydras, but there aren't enough Hydras for it to actually matter. The push goes through, and this base is most likely going to die right now. There is no fungal energy left to make that work. Ryung, again, not controlling this. Needs to focus, and now he's finally going to go kill this base. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in a really tough spot now. He's trying to reestablish his bases as much as possible, but the army of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is getting battered here. There's a lot of production coming out here from Ryung, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have the economy to sustain this. Another drop comes in, and even without stim, this is going to kill this mineral line very, very quickly. Ryung pushing forward to try and end this, and let's see if he can make that happen. Another Widow Mine pops off and actually hits the Overlords, which is not that useful at all, and there's the GG, and Ryung pulls his team ahead once again, 4-2 in this series against Root Gaming, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Could very well come back out again. That's a possibility. We could see that happen. Do we see Yu-Gi-Oh! Come out again for the ace, or do we see Sage be brought out? Those are the two most likely possibilities. It's unlikely we'll see a North American player brought out as the ace in this scenario. Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Sage? We'll find out very shortly, folks. Don't go anywhere. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the next game? This could potentially be our final matchup here. Yu-Gi-Oh! As predicted, has been brought out as the ace for Team Root. Let's see if it is enough to deal with this man. In the blue trunks, playing Terran to the southeast of Belshia Vestige, it is Axiom Ryung. Versus his opponent, once again, in the red trunks, playing Zerg to the northwest, it is Root's Yu-Gi-Oh! For those of you who are just tuning into this tournament, welcome. It's a great tournament. You should tune in more often. If you've missed it, there's a lot of VODs on my StarCraft channel, youtube.com/Totalbiscuit. Please check out Karante versus Mouse Sports. It is mind-blowingly good. You have no idea. That tournament event was just great. That was one of the best of 9 team series I've ever seen in the history of StarCraft 2. I'd strongly recommend you look at it. Anyway, the rules for Ace of Team Story Cup are as follows. Once you get down to your last map, you can bring out any player as an ace. That means that it is possible to actually bring along the same player again. In fact, it is possible in some scenarios to actually have the same player 3 times, because twice in this tournament you are allowed to revive a player. Root, I think, might have used all the revives now, so I don't think that's really an option for them, but bringing out Yu-Gi-Oh! Makes a lot of sense. It's either that or you bring out Sage. If you bring out Sage, I think you meet the potency of Ryung's new TVP. Let's just say that that is the kind of mistake that was made by LGIM in the GSTL. They thought that you could snipe Ryung with a Protoss, and you can't. You actually can't. Ryung's TVP right now is ridiculously silly. Like, I don't know what happened to the guy, but he didn't used to be good at this matchup. This used to be his weakest matchup by far, and now it's one of his strongest, which I think a lot of people are surprised by this. They say, oh, you know, Ryung's a TVT sniper. No, actually, Ryung's just good at everything now, which is really scary. I know I'm blowing up my own player here, but really, he is very, very good. So, Yu-Gi-Oh! Makes the best sense, in my opinion, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has already proven that he's great against Terran. He beat Heart convincingly. He had some great builds. His control, in my opinion, his control has actually been better than Ryung's. And I know that sounds like I'm bashing on my own player, but what we saw was a lot of drops from Ryung that weren't properly controlled. We saw a lot of engagements that weren't necessarily well taken, and he still won. And his drop play and his strategy was great, but his control, I don't think, was as good as Yu-Gi-Oh's. Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus Widow Mines is actually one of the most awe-inspiring things to watch I've ever seen. You see a Zerg player that is consistently doing well and dealing with Widow Mines in an extremely awesome fashion. So we'll see. Does Ryung tighten up here? What does Yu-Gi-Oh! Do? Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going for... Apparently some people are claiming I'm clipping. That shouldn't be possible. I haven't changed my levels at all. Is it clipping or crackling? Unfortunately, since I'm on a broadcast delay, I'm not going to find out for another couple of minutes. But if it's crackling, that'll go away. If it's clipping, then that shouldn't even be happening. So I can adjust that, but I need to know. I guess I'll find out in 2 minutes when the chat actually catches up to me. Anyway, we saw here the pool going down. 3 hatches up. So Yu-Gi-Oh! In a decent spot. He got this hatch blocked, so he had to go pool first. That's the only way he could really deal with it, and he got a couple of links out, the cancellation went out, so what Ryung did essentially blocked the 3 hatch before pool build. That's pretty cool. Considering that he saw that his opponent went for that, and that it was a really dangerous build, it's a good move to use the engineering bay to block off that and force your opponent down a slightly different build and tech path that you're probably a little bit more comfortable with. Ryung's looking pretty solid right now. He's going for that greedy 3rd command center build. His CC is down the low ground and is now already an orbital command, so that's a good economic position for the Terran player to be in. That also then leaves the next move really up to Yu-Gi-Oh! What you will see is most likely Hellions, just to gain a little bit of map control. The speed is going to be out quicker because, of course, it was a pull before that 3rd hatch, and we're going to see that speed come out. So it's up to Ryung to try and defend against this, and we need to see whether or not Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually decides to get really aggressive. A couple of Hellions out on the field. If we see a swell of lings, then obviously he's going to get aggressive. Building a few roaches might help, but I don't really rate it, especially not with a tech lab already going down here on the barracks. It would be easy to defend that. So we might just see an economically focused play by Yu-Gi-Oh! But if that's the case, then it's really up to Ryung to try and do a little bit of damage with some Hellions. 16 lings coming out. Again, that can be for both. If you see Hellions come out on the field, you need those lings anyway, because if you don't build a Roach Warren, then you can't defend unless you've got a lot of lings. So it looks like we're not seeing a Roach Warren here from Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I like. It's funny, we're going back to the old Wings of Liberty meta, where the old meta of Terran versus Zerg went something like this, right? You ended up with your opponent going Hellions. So you are pretty much kind of forced down a roach path. And this is actually going to suck. He's not ready to defend against this at all. This is a great little run by here by Yu-Gi-Oh! And catching his opponent completely off guard. There we go. Hellion's now in defensive position, but he's done so much damage with this. He takes down the bunker as well. There's going to be drones behind this, so there's going to be no follow-up aggression, and the Hellions will eventually deal with it, but looks like he's even going to lose a supply depot as well. It was totally worth it, killing 4 workers, forcing mining time lost, killing a bunker, and he might even lose the supply depot here as well. Ryung defends against this quite nicely, as well as he could have expected to, but this is an economically focused piece of harassment here from Yu-Gi-Oh! He's able to drone hard behind this, and he puts down his double evolution chambers, which is going to be pretty important because we're actually, yeah, we are seeing double evo here from Ryung. Ryung's going to be a bit ahead in terms of his upgrades, but the last thing you want is for him to get too far ahead. Ryung needs to get back to mining, though. His actual income now is okay because of mules, but it's nowhere near where it needs to be. Yu-Gi-Oh's is really healthy. So, what do the Hellions do? Well, they can go and harass. In fact, that's actually a really good idea. There's 22 Zerglings on the way. Depends on Ryung's control as to how effective that is. 22 Speedlings should shut down 6 Hellions in ideal scenarios, but you never know. It's so difficult to predict. There's 4 Queens on the field as well, and creep spread is looking pretty good. Ryung will look to try and do damage to the 3rd base here. And he should be able to do something, actually. But that's been spotted pretty early, so the Lings are now moving into position. If Yu-Gi-Oh! Successfully defends against this, then he's way far ahead. Ryung's got to do damage to try and compensate for the workers and mining time he lost. Here it comes. The flank's coming in. Will Ryung be able to control properly? The surround is coming in here by Yu-Gi-Oh! And actually, it's not very good. Is it going to be good enough? It's done some damage. Oh, he grabs 2 on the end. There we go. So he shut down that aggression entirely. Nice move there by Yu-Gi-Oh! Initially, it wasn't a great surround, but it then turned into one when he was able to catch those 2 Hellions out. So that's fine. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was now going to kill this Hellion by the looks of it, and he will then be going up against 2 Hellions, and he doesn't have to worry at all. So, next transition. Yu-Gi-Oh! Now builds a Spire. Okay, cool. Absolutely fine. He's on 6 gas, so he's going to be able to produce a lot of Mutalisks. There's not a lot of Marines or anything really up on the field for Ryung. This is the kind of time where Ryung needs to strongly consider getting some static defense. He's only building 1 Marine at a time. He's also building Widow Mines, which again is fine if your opponent makes a mistake. And if we've seen anything, Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't make mistakes against Widow Mines, so... Putting the armory back here as well might actually be a mistake. And the reason I say this is because this is eminently snipeable by mutas. Like, mutas can sit here and kind of dodge in and out and kill that armory, which would actually be a huge advantage there for the Zerg. So that could very much work against Ryung. This is a perfectly timed run by here to try and deny this 3rd base from going down, and Ryung doesn't actually have enough of an army. Ooh, that was a bit of a pop-off there by the Widow Mine. Now he has enough of an army to defend that, so... Widow Mine does a good job. But we're going to be seeing Muta play very shortly, I would think. I don't know, actually. There's so little gas. Like, when is the Muta actually going to hit? He just started a bunch of upgrades, so he's not building Mutas. He can't. He hasn't got any... Okay, he is building Mutas. He's building 3 of them. Does he just build them for drop defense, or does he just slowly build that army up? Usually you want a big swell of them, so you can hit it at a nice timing, but when he starts 3 upgrades at once, and then builds a bunch of roaches, that's actually not what he's doing at all. So this is a kind of weird build here. I think maybe you pressure the front and then dodge in with Mutas, but 4 Mutas doesn't really do anything. If you build a missile turret, that kills 4 Mutalisks, so you don't need to worry about it. So it's an odd one, and maybe it's just for drop defense. I think that's a possibility. 4 Mutalisks is pretty good for drop defense. We're seeing Baneling speed moving in as well, so we might just see this big Baneling and Roach attack. It's still very strange. Oh, wow. 16 Banelings coming in? Yeah, that's pretty brutal. If Ryung's caught out of position with this one, he is going to be in a horrible spot. Admittedly, he does have Widow Mines, so Banelings don't tend to do all that well against that. Even with Yu-Gi-Oh's control, I feel that the amount of Widow Mines he's building might be good. Mutas are going to be kind of annoying. I have to wonder if this is more of a fake to say to Ryung, hey, I've got 4 Mutalisks. You better move out, because there might be others. This is giving map control to Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, but it also forces the Terran player into a defensive position, which is exactly where he needs to be right now. Last thing he wants to do is be caught out in the middle of the map against Speed Banelings. Alright, Speed Banes are on the way. Here comes the attack. There are Widow Mines in position. However, he is going to be sending... Oh! A lot of Banelings went up against that one. That was half the Baneling count obliterated almost immediately. Can Ryung actually successfully split against this army, though? He doesn't have much of an army. He's only got 25 Marines and a couple of Widow Mines here. Ryung is going to try his best to defend. He's going to try and drag his opponent over another Widow Mine. Oh, that didn't trigger as well. That was nice. It then kills the Overseer. So Yu-Gi-Oh actually doesn't have any detection, but he snipes a bunch of workers at the third base. That one rolling Baneling desperately wants that mule, but it's not going to get it. Let me in! Let me in! Not a good idea. If you let him in, the Roaches come in here. Great moves by Yu-Gi-Oh right now as Ryung desperately tries to defend against it. Not enough Widow Mines. SCV's coming off the line. These Marines need to get into position right now to take it. He can defend it, but this move was big. Really big. A lot of SCVs were killed here. That was really damaging. The Roaches are going to be driven in. More Lings actually coming into position here. The Widowmines did a decent job, but look at the number of workers killed. 38. The third base is lifted right now. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in a good spot. Tech-wise, Ryung has an advantage. He's about to have 2-2, so if he starts to pick his opponent apart here, he's going to be in a good spot, but he's on 36 workers and 3 CCs. That's not so good at all. Really isn't. He's got to make sure that he engages effectively with his army. I think some Widowmines might have actually killed some SCVs there. Or actually some Marines there as well, which is not good. These drops have got to be really effective to get him back in this game, in my opinion. Drilling Claws is a good addition, especially if his opponent plays a more Banelings-heavy style, but he's going Hive again. We might see that Broodlord style coming out against Heavy Widowmine, which, as we saw, is extremely effective. Another Harass comes down. That is now shut down by Ryung, and we're going to now need to see some drop action, okay? So that's what's going to have to happen. Let's see. He's the third base defender. He's actually skipped out on static defense, which is not something Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually does. That could prove to be very, very dangerous. More Banelings morphing in. Trying to get a focus fire. He needs to move away from that. He can't take big hits. He moves. That was nice. That engagement against it was really, really good. He's got to watch out for those Widowmines actually detonating against his own army here. A couple more are going to trigger by the looks of it. Here comes the drop. That shut down the fourth base, or the third base, in fact, for the time being. Ryung's going to be able to defend against this quite handily. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually falling in supply pretty badly, and he GG's, and Ryung takes the series right then and there. And I guess the reality of the situation was that Roach Baneling attack was supposed to kill Ryung. The fact that it didn't means that Ryung was able to get the upgrade advantage. He was able to drop. The Roaches were caught out in the middle of the map. The army was killed, and suddenly that supply advantage melts away. 2-2 upgrades come into effect. Ryung slaps his opponent down, and that ends the series. Ryung closing out this series for Axiom 5-2, which, to be honest, considering Axiom has not been doing that well on the Ace of Teams Story Cup so far, is kind of a big deal. So that gives them a very, very good amount of points going forward, and a strong win against a strong set of players. Yu-Gi-Oh! Very much carrying his team here, the only player to get any wins on the board today. 2 American players didn't really do an awful lot, unfortunately. They were killed by Alicia. Sage was killed off by Alicia, and then we had a couple of big wins there by Ryung against Yu-Gi-Oh! After Yu-Gi-Oh! Was able to take out both Alicia and Hart. Well, there you go. 5-2 for Axiom. Well played by both sides. Yu-Gi-Oh! Playing really, really well there, but not quite enough to best Ryung. Thank you very much for watching the Ace of Teams Story Cup. I would encourage you to go and check out WCS Europe. That started about 45 minutes ago, I think. So please go and check that out. Go on to teamliquid.net and you will see exactly what is going on there. That is the action coming in from the Premier Division. I believe 4GG is playing, which is always good. I think Bunny's playing, as well as Sase and one other player whose name I forget. Alright, folks, I'm done for the night, or the day. I'm going to go and try and get some work done and probably drink about 3 cups of coffee. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry for the crappy casting, and I will see you next time.